the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccer Files Canada. Welcome to our continuation of Series 19. This one looking at the players of the 2023 Asian Cup, due to be played in January 2024. This episode is looking at the players of Hong Kong. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccer Files Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 19 on the players of the 2023 Asian Cup, played in 2024. This episode covers Hong Kong's players. And we're doing this mediacast in two parts. Part one is looking at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We think we went into too much detail in previous player media casts we've done, so we're aiming for a lighter, more listener-friendly kind of narrative version this time. Part two will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad is selected. We think that will be in late December or early January. And then at that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover some other things, which I'll talk about at the end of this part one. We have made a separate video on what we'll be covering over the next 9 months. YouTube watchers can see that, can see the link to that on the screen, and it can also be found in the show notes for both watchers and for listeners. In short, we're focused on the Asian and African Cups, both of these taking place in early 2024. And we've also started coverage on World Cup 2026 qualifying. So this episode has three sections. Section one, where we give and discuss some general information on the team. And section two, where we look at the main candidates in each position and their likelihood of making the squad. And section three, where we give any closing thoughts and preview part two in more detail. All right, let's begin then. And we will start with some general information and observations on the squad. So we have 2 points here. The first is that most positions for Hong Kong are undecided right now. There have been some changes over the last year, with some players who seemed kind of firmly embedded in their position now being challenged for it, leaving some of them on the bench in recent games. We're not sure what to make of this. The manager could be trying out players for backup to the position, or to give them some experience in it, or else these could represent changes to the starting lineup that we'll see in the Asian Cup. The other point is that there's not that much experience on the squad. The starting keeper has 87 caps, and the 40-year-old midfielder Huang Yang has 71 caps, and now he seems actually to have dropped down to being a sub. But beyond those two, there are three players that have around 40 caps, and most of them have 20 or less. So not a lot of experience there. Okay, next we look at retirements, big retirements, but actually there's none of note for Hong Kong. They had a spat of veterans retiring in 2017 and 18. But apart from that, no kind of long-term players other than the, well, the ones we mentioned, the two we mentioned who have a lot of caps are still going. Let's talk a bit about Hong Kong's players' club affiliations. So all of them play in Hong Kong, except for a few who play with Chinese clubs, and then one who plays outside of the country. We'll mention him soon. So the main domestic clubs here are Kitchi, Eastern AA, which means Athletic Association, and Liman. Those players are the most, or those clubs are the most represented among the players. Outside of the country, as mentioned, there are 4 players playing with Chinese clubs and 1 player playing with a smaller German club, Ingolstadt. He's actually on the Ingolstadt 2 team. And in terms of big name clubs, not really for these players. Probably Dalian Pro in China is probably the biggest name among them. So there we go, and let's take a look at their recent games then. So we're going to cover here over the last 2 years, because that's what we look at when we look at the participation of players when we get there. So we'll cover kind of what games they've played. We don't really care about the scores here. We actually care more about the lineups. But anyway, I'll mention the teams they've played. So they had a friendly in January 2022, and that was against Malaysia. They then had Asian Cup qualifiers in June of 2022. That was 3 games. And those games were against Afghanistan, Cambodia, and India. And finishing in the top 2 is what got them here to the Asian Cup. In July of that year, there was the East Asian Cup. So that's the local, kind of the local group that Hong Kong is in. And they were... they didn't actually reach that through qualifying. They were kind of appointed to the Cup. The 3 teams that were always there and the 3 teams they played were Japan, South Korea, and China. And it's just a 4-team kind of round-robin tournament there. So that was in July. I think I didn't put that in the graphics. July of 2022. And then their last set of games in 2022 were in September, so 2 games in September, and both of them were against Myanmar. So they didn't play any friendlies in October or November. The next set of friendlies were the following year in March. So they had 2 games in March. That was Singapore and Malaysia. 2 games in June of 2023. That was Vietnam and Thailand. And then 2 games in September of 2023. 2 friendlies against Cambodia and Brunei. And finally, in October of 2023, they were in the preliminary round of World Cup 2026 qualifiers. So we actually did, we started our World Cup qualifying coverage with those preliminary games. Kind of doing a podcast on each of the games. That was kind of a good opportunity to look at some of the weaker teams in the region. So that was 2 games in October 23, sorry, October 2023. Both of them were against Bhutan, and they won that set as expected to reach the round 2, which is a group stage. So they'll be beginning those games in November, which we'll talk about right away here. So we're more interested here actually in the formations that they used in these games. And very steadily, Hong Kong used a 4-3-3 formation. And I'll just talk about the midfield there. Generally, it was just 3 straight across the midfield, especially in recent times. But sometimes that 3 was more of a 1-2 formation, so with a more defensive midfielder and 2 kind of I want to say attacking midfielders, but it's also played by central midfielders as well. Anyway, a 4-3-3, and sometimes the front line can be divided the same way, with kind of 1 player playing a bit more forward and the 2 on the outside playing a little bit back, but generally a 4-3-3. And actually we saw some variations of that some variations of that in the East Asian Cup. So that was the only time they didn't use kind of a 4-3-3 formation. In the Asian Cup, it was a 4-3-1-2. So kind of a definite attacking midfielder and 2 forwards, and then a 4-3-2-1. And then a 4-1-4-1, which is completely different from the 4-3-3, but only once. Otherwise, in all of the other games I've mentioned, it's a 4-3-3 with that minor variation of sometimes the midfield breaking into 2 parts. Okay, enough on that. So usual formations, a 4-3-3, and recent formations, a 4-3-3. Okay, let's finish this section 1 with upcoming games. So they have round 2 then of World Cup 2026 qualifiers. Those are 2 games in November. And the first one is a tough game. It's Iran facing Iran away, which is interesting because they meet Iran in the group stage of the upcoming Asian Cup too. And then they play Turkmenistan at home. So we think they'll definitely be putting out their starting lineup or their best players for this, and that will give us a good hint of what we're going to see in the Asian Cup. In terms of kind of pre-tournament friendlies, they probably will schedule them, I'm guessing, but there are no friendlies set as of this time. And by the way, this time is late October when we're recording this podcast. So no friendlies set yet. Okay, on we go to section 2 and a look at Hong Kong's players. So we begin with the manager. We usually look at the previous manager going out, but we're not going to do that in this case because this manager has been there for a while. So it's Jorn Andersen is the manager. He has no experience at the tournament level. He was a player. He was a Norwegian player and on the national team from 1985 to 90, and he got 27 caps and 5 goals there. In terms of his management experience, he's been with the Hong Kong national team since 2021. So a couple of years under his belt there. Prior to that, and quite interestingly, he was the manager of North Korea, just the second foreign manager they had there. He was with them from 2016 to 18, and then the only other kind of manager experience he has is with Mainz in Germany from 2010 to 2011. So there's 5 years kind of not accounted for. So I'm guessing he was kind of assistant manager or something like that during that period. So anyway, he does have some experience with national teams. That must have been an interesting experience in North Korea. Okay, let's begin then with the players by looking at goalkeepers, and I'll just run through the names first, and I'll just point out that if their name is in black lettering, that means they've been through a tournament. Oh, I shouldn't actually need to say this because none of these players have been through a tournament, so all of them are going to be in gray lettering there, just like the manager. Okay, our definite candidate is Hung Fei Yap. He's a definite. And then we have 2 likely candidates in Se Ka Wing and Paulo Cesar, the 2 likely candidates. And then I'm going to put this name on the list just because he's kind of possible but unlikely, but he has been around during the past 2 years. I'll tell you why I'm putting it on the list soon. But let's go back to the top with Hung Fei Yap. So he's been with the team since 2010 and is one of the veterans I talked about. I think I said 87 caps in the intro. Here I have 88. And he's 33 years old, so not that old as far as a goalkeeper goes. Over the past 2 years, Hung Fei Yap started 7 of their 17 games and subbed in for 1 and was on the bench for 6. So the only games that he missed were those EAFF Cup, East Asian Cup games, where he wasn't the starting keeper. Otherwise, he seems to be the starting keeper, and he kind of held the position more consistently for a long time, but recently seems to be sharing the position more with the likely candidates here. So we move on to Tse Ka Wing, and he's just been with the team since 2023, and he has 3 caps. And he got his first appearance actually way back in November 2017. I mean, first appearance by, he was on the bench in November 2017, and then he was off the team and returned after a more than 5-year absence in March of 2023. And started 3 of their remaining 8 games and was on the bench for the 5 others. So upon coming back, he was kind of seems to be firmly a part of the team now. Well, all of these players play in Hong Kong, so I'll only mention it if there's something unusual. In his case, he was with a youth club in England. He was with Bury Youth Club in England. And he seems to, again, have come in out of the cold to make a bid as a second string keeper here. But challenging him for second string will be our other likely candidate, Paulo Cesar. So Paulo Cesar was born in Brazil, but has played for teams in Hong Kong since 2013. And he did play for teams in Portugal and in Brazil as well when he was younger. He got his first cap in June of 2022, and he started 4 of their remaining 17 games and was on the bench for 11 others. And the only 2 that he was not selected for was because of injury. So Paulo Cesar, a likely candidate. And then because we have no possible or candidates at the possible level, it looks like those will definitely be the 3 for the cup. The other name I put there, Chan Ka Ho, has 2 caps, and he was selected for the EFA, the East Asian Cup, in July of 2022, but it looks like he was only selected for that one, and didn't even start all 3 games actually. Paulo Cesar started the other one. So he looks like he's not really part of the manager's plans for the team. So let's conclude then with our little narrative, or summarize with the narrative. Yap does seem to be the main keeper still, but has been sharing the role with Paulo Cesar, in 2022. But from March 2023, it is Tse Ka Wing who seems to be the second string keeper. So that is the situation there. Let's move on to defenders, and we will start with central defenders. So we saw the 4-3-3 formation, always 2 central defenders there. And we have no definite candidates here. They tend to kind of mix and match a lot, which I'll talk about when we get to the narrative. But we have 3 likely candidates, and the first one is Vaz Nunez, and the second one is Helio, and the third one is Andy Russell. And then we have 4 possible candidates in Lung Nok Hang, and then Yu Wei Lim, and Lee Ngai Ho, and Oliver Gerbig. And we have a couple of candidates who seem to be off the squad. Let me see if it's worth mentioning. I'll just kind of say their names here. Feng Hinghua last appeared for the national team in September 2022. And Sean Tse last appeared for the team also in September 2022. What I think happened to him is that he might have quit the team because he moved back to England to play for a small team in England. So he hasn't appeared for the national team since doing that in September 2022. Okay, let's go back and look at the candidates a little bit. So the likely candidate, the first of 3, is Vaz Nunez. So he has been with the team since 2022 and has 6 caps for the team. He got his first cap in July of 2022 and went on to start 6 of their remaining 13 games. And then he was on the bench for 2, injured for 2, and not selected for 3 others. So despite his kind of foreign sounding name, Vas Nunez was born in Hong Kong. And yes, well, we'll talk about him more. He's sorry, I have a little summary of him here. He starts about half the game since his first one in 2022. That's it. He starts about half the games. Let's move on to our second candidate, Helio. Helio is a Brazilian-born player. He is 37 years old. And he has been with the team since 2016 with 23 caps and even a goal. So he returned actually after a 15-month absence in September of 2022, probably to replace Andy Russell there. And he started 8 of their remaining 10 games to October until now. And he subbed in for 1 and was on the bench for 1. So I think the only reason I put him as a likely rather than definite candidate was because of his age, 37 years old. But I'm just going to move him up on the list ahead of Nunez because he seems more likely there. Okay, and our third likely candidate was Andy Russell, or is Andy Russell. And sorry, he's not the one that went to England. That's Sean Say. Anyway, Andy Russell has been with the national team since 2016 with 22 caps. He's also quite old, 36 years old, and he was born in England. And he returned after an almost 4-year absence in September of 2023. So just recently, and started 1 of their 4 remaining games, and he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2 others. So off the team for 4 years and then making a late comeback, perhaps hoping to get involved in the Asian Cup, is Andy Russell. So he is fairly old, as I said. Perhaps they're calling him back for his experience there. But his recent participation and his longer history with the team makes him a likely candidate, in our opinion. Okay, let's move on to Lung Nong Hak. Lung Nong Han has been with the team since 2015 and has just 12 caps in that time. He's one of the ones who plays in China, actually. He's with Zhejiang Professional in China. And he returned himself after a 3-year absence in March of 2023 and started 4 of the remaining 8 games. And he subbed in for 2. However, we had to move him down a notch because he wasn't selected for the last 2 matches. Those are the 2 World Cup qualifying preliminary round matches there, Lung Nok Han. So, not being selected for the last 2, we think is a bit of a concern. Okay, Yu Wei Lam is the next possible candidate. He's been with the team since 2021 and has 7 caps. And he started 3 games over the past 2 years, but that was 3 of the first 4, so early in 2022. Besides that, he subbed in for 2 and was on the bench for 2, but not selected for 6 matches, 9 matches actually, but he was injured for 3 of them. But that includes the last 4 matches. So it looks like kind of Andy Russell took over where he left off. So Yu Wei Lim, we have him as a possible candidate. He actually started as a right winger one time, but he's been used less and less, and again not selected for the last 4. Third of 4 possible candidates is Lee Ngai Hoi, and he also returned after a 3-year absence in March of 2023 and started 2 of their remaining 8 games, and was on the bench for 2 and not selected for 4 of those matches. So he returned after an absence, but got only 2 starts. However, one of them was in the last match. So that recent participation kind of improves his chances a little bit, we think. And finally, brand new to the team is Oliver Gerbig. He doesn't have any caps, but he got his first appearance on the bench in October of this year. So just a few weeks ago there, and didn't start either of the games, but was on the bench for both of them. So perhaps making a late entrance, Oliver Gerbig. Okay, and that is the candidates. We think they'll bring 5 or 6 of these players to the Cup. So there were 2 players who were kind of holding down the position. Their names were Feng and Tse. 2 players, that's Sean Tse and the 2 players who I said were off the field, Feng Hinghua and Sean Tse, and they were holding down the position from the beginning of 2022 up until they abruptly stopped playing for the team in September 22. They weren't playing all the games, but they were prominent in the first half of that year. And since that time, it's become a rotation of the players below. We saw some of them kind of came into the team after an absence, and some of them left the team for the last few games. So we can't be really sure what who the candidate's going to be. A rotation. Helio and Vaz Nunez played more than the other ones, though. And generally, recently, it's been Helio and a different player for the last 4 games. So 4 different players partnering with Helio over the last 4 games. So Helio seems the most likely here. Okay, and that is it for central defenders, and we move on to. Oh, I should move those to the right place here on the graphic. We're going to move on to left backs, and we have no definite or likely candidates for the left back position, but we have 4 possible candidates. So the first possible candidate is Chan Shinichi. Chan Shinichi, and the next one is Lung Kwon Chung. Third one is Wong Tzu-ho. And the fourth one is a Brazilian named Fernando. So let's take a bit of a closer look at these characters. So Chan Shinichi has been with the team since 2019, and he has 8 caps and 1 goal. He's just 21 years old. And despite that, he returned after a more than 2-year absence in September of 2023 and started 3 of their 4 remaining games to up until now. Started 3 and was subbed in for 1. And Chan Shinichi kind of making a late bid. He seems to have turned professional at 15 years of age, and he got his first senior cap at 17 years of age. So a young player, kind of already quite experienced for his age. Chan Shinichi, a possible candidate. Next is Lung Kwon Chung. And he's been with the team since 2015, but only 11 caps. He started 6 of their 17 games over the past 2 years. He was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 5, and not selected for 4 matches, 2 of those due to injury, but 2 of them the last 2 matches. So again, that makes him, that puts a question mark on him in terms of whether he'll be selected for the Cup. So he seemed a definite candidate until he got an injury in September and then was not called up in October. So perhaps his not being called up for the last 2 games was kind of still recovering from the injury. But we don't know. The November games will be may shed some light and kind of firm up the squad here. Third candidate, Wong Tzu-ho. Has been with the team since 2015 with 14 caps, and he over the past 2 years started 7 of their 17 games, and he subbed in for 3 and was on the bench for 1 and not selected for 7 matches. So, yes, he was off the team for the September and the first game in October, but then he came back for the last match and was subbed in. However, there's a bit of an injury question mark on him that we'll update in part 2 of the podcast. It doesn't seem to be a long-term injury, and maybe explains why he wasn't there for the last match. Finally, we have Fernando. Fernando is Brazilian-born, but has played in Hong Kong enough to make him a naturalized citizen. In terms of the national team, though, he's been on only since 2022 with 7 caps and 1 goal, and he is 37 years old. So he got his first cap in June 2022, Fernando, and he started 4 of their remaining 17 games over the past 2 years. He subbed in for 3 and then not selected for 10 matches, 3 of those due to coronavirus, being out with coronavirus. So he wasn't used much when he came in 22, but he has started the last 4 matches. His age is a bit of a doubt. And I'll just add one detail here before I do the summary, and that is that he and one other player, who is it? Oh, Chan Shinichi, oddly, both popped up as left forwards 1 time each, which I found kind of curious. So left defenders for the most part, but sometimes take a crack at being a forward. So let's summarize with a little narrative here. Wong Se-ho had a firm grip on the position in early 2022, and Lung Kwon-chung played there in the EAFF Cup, the East Asian Cup. However, from that time in July 22, it's been a rotation with no pattern, no discernible pattern, except that Fernando has been in the position recently. Okay, that is the left back. It's a bit more simple on the right side, though, because we have one definite candidate in Yue Tzu Nam, a definite candidate, Yue Tzu Nam, and a likely candidate in Sui Wang Kit. So let's look at these 2 candidates. Yue Tzu Nam has been with the team since 2018 and has 14 caps. And even though he's just 25 years old, he was off the team for 3 years, but returned in June 22 and started 11 of their 17 games since that time, as well as subbing in for 1 and being on the bench for 2. So just 3 matches he wasn't selected for, 1 of them due to coronavirus. So we consider him a definite candidate. In terms of being a starter, there was a period in the middle of the last 2 years where he didn't start, but he did so at the beginning of this period and at the end. So we're looking at Yue Tzu Nam as a starter. The other candidate is likely. It's Sui Wang Kit, and he's been with the team since 2017 and has 21 caps. And he started 5 of their games over the past 2 years, subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 4. But he was out with the coronavirus for 3, and he is a more legitimate injury concern because with him, it's an unknown return date. So we'll have to update that in part 2 of the mediacast. So given that, given that he starts about a third of the games, and he's called up very often, we think he's a likely candidate, Sui Wang Kit. And sorry, I kind of jumped the gun there by starting on the narrative. So let's summarize the position with the narrative. It's primarily Yue Tzu Nam with Sui Wang Kit in the position about a third of the time. However, recently it's just Yue Tzu Nam. there was a central defender, Yu Wei Lim, that was used in 2022. So he maybe could come across and play the position and act as the backup, especially if Cui Van Kit is injured. Okay, we move on to the midfielders. And again, not a lot of distinction here between defensive and central midfielders. In fact, that time where they used a 4-1-4-1 formation, I think it was a central midfielder who actually played in the stopper role there. So anyway, we have a lot of candidates, so we will divide them into the two parts here and begin with players coded as defensive midfielders. And we start with the captain of the team and the veteran I mentioned at the beginning, Huang Yang. However, we only have him as a likely candidate. He's been on the team since 2012 with 71 caps. He's 40 years old, though, and he started 11 of their 17 games over the past 2 years and was on the bench for one, but not selected for 5 others, including the last 2 matches. So, you know, we think they'll bring him to the cup, but I wonder if he is the starter. We'll talk about that in the narrative. Anyway, Huang Yang, I mean, almost certain to be brought to the cup. Whether he's a starter is really the question, because they would like his experience on the bench, at least, I'm sure. Okay, and then we have a couple of candidates at the possible but unlikely level, so I'll just name them. The first one is Lam Hin Ting. Basically, his name just popped up, but I haven't seen him actually even on the bench for a game. He also has disciplinary issues, so might be in trouble. The next one is Ngan Chuk Pan. So he actually subbed in for 2 games in early 2023, but has been off the team for the last 6 matches. So, sorry, I copied the wrong thing in there. Ngan Chukpan may turn up, but we don't think it's really likely. So just Huang Yang as a likely candidate as a central defender. Let's move on to the central midfielders. And we have a definite candidate in Wu Chunmin. Wu Chunmin. I'll introduce the candidates first. And we have a likely candidate, but I think he's really definite, in Tan Chun Lok. Okay, so not a lot of candidates in the midfield, but I actually will explain that shortly. Let's look at the candidates, though. Wu Chunming has been on the team since 2017 and has 15 caps. He returned after a more than 4.5-year absence in June 2022 to start 4 of their remaining 16 games. And he also subbed in for 10 and was on the bench for 2. So he was called up for all 17 matches. And he is actually the one who played as a stopper in the 4-1-4-1 formation. So he's a kind of a central midfielder here, which doesn't make a lot of sense now, but might soon, because they have 3 midfielders, right? So he's the one in the middle. Okay, Tan Chun Lok has been with the team since 2015 with 39 caps and 3 goals. And he also played for youth clubs in England, so Northampton and Peterborough youth clubs. And I don't think he was born there, though. He was not. He also returned after a 2.5-year absence. So something must have happened when the new manager came in, that he made a big overhaul and now is returning to some of the players who were on the team before. Returned after a 2.5-year absence in July 2022 to start 8 of the remaining 13 games, and subbed in for 1 and was injured for 2, and just 2 matches that he was actually not selected for. So Tan Chun Lok, a likely candidate. And now we can kind of do a summary for both positions, defensive and central midfielders. So as mentioned, it's usually 3 in the midfield, whether that's a straight line or kind of a 1-2 formation. And it was consistently Huang Yang until the last 3 games, although Tan Chun Lok was increasingly playing a bigger role, at first as kind of a right midfielder, but over the last 3 games, he's taken over as the central midfielder, or the center midfielder of those 3, replacing Huang, it seems, at least for the last 3 games. And just a note on the definite candidate, Wu Chun Ming. You might notice I didn't mention him during the summary. That's because he is really not a starter. He only started 4 of their games, but we considered him a definite candidate because he has been called up for all 17 of them. So usually coming in as a substitute. But yes, just to clarify, these we consider him a definite candidate to make the team, and that's what we're talking about here. And the fact that he's a definite candidate doesn't necessarily mean he's a starter. Okay, and I had actually graphics problem. I had put the graphics in the wrong place for defensive and central midfielders, so I had to pause the video and fix that. And I play a little game while I'm editing these things. I try to hide my cuts. So if you want a bit of fun, you can go back and see if you can find my cut. Sometimes I hide it well, and sometimes I don't. Okay, left midfielders. Let's move on. We only have well, we actually have no players coded as left or right midfielders. But it is a 4-3-3 formation, so there is almost always a left and right midfielder, and it is played by players out of position. So we've actually moved one of the attacking midfielders in here, and we've moved actually 2 attacking midfielders and 1 central midfielder, because they tend to occupy the right and left midfield positions. So talking about out of position players, but we do have a definite candidate in attacking midfielder Wong Wei. And he's the only candidate actually as a left midfielder, even though some players other players step into the position here and there. But he started 4 of their 17 games over the past 2 years, and was out with coronavirus for 1 and on the bench for 1 other. So always called up. A definite candidate. Wong Wei has been with the team since 2013 and has 42 caps and 3 goals. So he's a staple on the team. And I'll just do the right midfielders and then summarize, because it's kind of the same summary for both. For right midfielders, we have 2 definite candidates. So the first one is Zhu Yingxi, and the other one is Chan Xiu Quan. But he has Philip in his name sometimes, so probably like my kids, mixed Asian and Western, Chang Xiu Quan. Okay, let's go back and look at those 2 players then. So Zhu Yingxi has started 8 of their 17 games over the past 2 years and was subbed in for 6 and on the bench for 2. So just 1 match that he wasn't selected for. Zhu Yingxi has been with the team since 2010 and has 45 caps and 3 goals. So he's one of about 3 players with more than 40 caps here. The other one is Chang Xiu Quan, and he, despite his Philip being in his name, was born in Hong Kong. As a youth, he actually joined the Grêmio youth club in Brazil, which is kind of interesting, but all of his professional career has been with teams in Hong Kong. And he's been with the team since 2015 with 16 caps and 4 goals. So he's a bit of a scorer there. And he started 6 of their 17 games over the past 2 years. He subbed in for 7, was on the bench for 1, and not selected for 3 matches. And those were the 3 matches of the East Asian Cup, although Hong Kong did send most of their starting squad to that cup. So both of these are definite candidates. They often appear as right midfielders, but do appear in other positions, especially Chang Xiu Kwong kind of roves around the field a little bit. Yeah, and both of them only start about half the games there, as we saw. So let's talk about this position of left midfielders and right midfielders. So as mentioned, there are no players coded in this, coded as left and right midfielders, but it is a 4-3-3 system. So the players that we mentioned pop up quite consistently as left and right midfielders, as we see in the 1-2 when they split into a 1-2 formation. Those players coded as attacking midfielders might have more responsibility for creating offense. Okay, let's go to players coded as left wingers. And this position actually includes left wingers, left attacking midfielders, or because they use a 4-3-3 formation, they're often left forwards as well. So think in terms of the upper left quadrant of the field here. And we begin with candidate Ming Him Sung, who is a definite candidate. Except for an injury doubt, which we'll talk about soon. And then we have He Yin Chang as a possible candidate. So Min Hing Sum, that should be Sun Ming Him, I think. Family name goes first in Asia. Sun Min Him has started 13 of their 17 games over the past 2 years and was subbed in for 4. And injured for the last match. My math is wrong there because that adds up to 18 games. Nevertheless, consistently called up is Sun Ming Him. However, he has an injury with an unknown return date. So we'll have to update that in November, but that would be a big loss for them since he's a regular starter. He's played as centre forward a couple of times too, Sun Ming Him. And finally, we have a possible candidate, He Yin Chang. So he got his first appearance on the bench in June of 2023. Didn't start any games, but was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 1 of those. So if he comes, he probably comes as a substitute. So let's summarize the position. It's quite consistently Sun Ming Him, playing as a left attacking midfielder or as a left forward. But as I mentioned a couple of times, the left backs, Fernando and Shinichi, have come up to play as left forwards. So they have a bit of backup in the central or the left defenders there. Okay, let's go to the right wing, and we have a definite candidate in Lo Tzu Chun. And we have 2 likely candidates in Everton Carmago and Awal Mahama. And then we have 2 possible but unlikely candidates, so I'll deal with them here. Wong Ho Chun, who also has a Western name involved, Anson. Wong Ho Chun, he was selected in March but hasn't been selected since. So he's pretty doubtful there, but we'll put his name on the list. And then we have Cheng Xiu Quan. We won't put his name on the list because he last appeared in September 2022. So let's deal with our 3 main candidates here, beginning with Lo Tzu Chung. And he has been with the team since 2019 and has 23 caps and 1 goal, which is he's 26 years old. He started 12 of their 17 games over the past 2 years, was subbed in for 3 and then on the bench for 2 others. However, even though he almost always started for most of this period, he's become more of a substitute recently. So perhaps not guaranteed to be a starter as he seemed to be for the Cup, but nevertheless, we definitely think he'll be called up. He played as a central attacking midfielder once as well. The next candidate is Everton Carmago, and he is also Brazilian born. He got his first cap in September of 2023 and started 3 of their remaining 4 games. And he got 3 goals as well in those 3 games. So perhaps the scorer that Hong Kong is looking for. He's been in Hong Kong since 2016 anyway. He was with the Juventude Youth Club in Brazil. Juventude, a pretty big club. That was in 2007. Okay, Everton Carmago then, a likely candidate. Also likely, but more as a substitute, is Awal Mahama. Awal Mahama got his first cap in March of 2023, and he started just 1 game there, one of their remaining 8 games, but he did sub in for 5 and was on the bench for 2. So because he's been consistently called up since March, we consider him a likely candidate. And he is born in Cameroon, actually, but he was with a youth club in France, Auxerre, there, and so he's a naturalized citizen to Hong Kong. So been with them since 2023 and has 6 caps, 5 of them as a substitute. Okay, and then we talked about the possible but unlikely candidates. So let us summarize this position. And as I kind of said, it was very much Lo Tzu Chun until September 2023. Camargo has played right winger. Moore has started the position more recently, with the Law coming in as a substitute now. So maybe that's what it will be going into the Cup. Okay, let's move on to the forwards, and we begin with attacking midfielders here. So we have actually just, well, 1 on the list here, but we saw that we moved 2 of them to the right and left midfielders. So that was Chan Xiu Quan on the as a right midfielder, and then Wong Wei as a left midfielder. They're also coded as attacking midfielders. So and they do play there too. So next is Yu Joy Jin, but also has a Western name involved, Jesse. So sometimes he's called Jesse Yu, but Yu Joy Jin has been with the team since 2022, got his first appearance in June of that year, and didn't start any games, any of their remaining games, but was on the bench, was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 7. And that includes the last match as well. So he did spend a few of those games with the under-23 team as well. So there were actually just 2 matches that he was not selected for. He was also out with coronavirus. So Yu Joy Jin, a possible candidate, but would be a bench player if he does come. That's it for attacking midfielders, other than the ones we mentioned as left and right midfielders. Let's move on to, there are no secondary strikers, players coded as secondary strikers. So we move on to forwards, and we have a definite candidate in Matt Orr. And then 2 likely candidates in Michael Udabaluzor and Poon Pui Hin, also a likely candidate. And then we have another possible but unlikely candidate here. I'll put his name on the list because he did appear in 2023. That was Lau Kakui, but just 1 appearance on the bench in March 2023 and not called up after that. So barely deserves to be on our list. given that participation, but he's there anyway. Going back to the definite candidate, Matt Orr, he's been with the team since 2021 and has 16 caps and 2 goals, and he also plays in China. He started 12 of the 17 games over the past 2 years, subbed in for 1, injured for 1, and not selected for 3 others. So Matt Orr, one of their main goal scorers. Okay, excuse me, I had to turn off and cough. Okay, next we have Michael Udabaluzor. And he was born in Hong Kong, but he is the son of a Nigerian player who played in Hong Kong. So Michael was born there. So Nigerian roots, and he's the one who plays in Germany for Ingolstadt. He has played actually for their A and their B team, but he's just 19 years old, so is working his way into the team. And he's played for a couple of youth clubs in Germany, including Ingolstadt, but he actually started with the Kitchi Youth Club in Hong Kong. He got his first cap just recently in September 2023, and he started all 3 of their remaining games, replacing Matt Orr there. Okay, and finally we have Poon Pui Hin. So he is a likely candidate. He also has been with the team since 2023. He has 4 caps and 2 goals. He's 23 years old. He got his first cap in March of 2023, and he started just 1 of the remaining 8 games there, but he was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 4 others. So we consider him a likely candidate. Poon Pui Hin. Okay, and let's summarize the position. So it was consistently Matt Orr until recently, but now Udabaluzor seems to be challenging for the position, starting the last 3. So we're talking about the position of centre forward here. There are 3 forwards positions, so it is possible for them to use more than one of them. But we have looked at the right and left midfielders and seen that they're pretty entrenched in their positions too. So really, it's just been the centre forward position for these players. Okay, and that brings us to the end. I'm looking forward to the November games. I suppose this moves into closing thoughts. I'm looking forward to the November games because some of these positions are still in flux, it seems. And my other closing thought is, having gone through this, it became more clear to me that something seemed to happen over the past maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, which is maybe why the players are a bit inexperienced, don't have a lot of caps under their belt, is what I mean. So it almost seems as if the team was overhauled or something a few years ago, and then some of these players are making a comeback, because we had a lot of players coming in after a 2, 3 or 4 year absence, coming back into the team. And they don't have a lot of caps because they haven't played over the past 2 or 3 years, but seem to have a lot of caps in the past. So not really sure what's behind that, but I won't reiterate the thoughts we had early on, other than to say it seems like a lot of the positions are in flux. So in part 2, it'll be interesting to see who showed up in November and who shows up on the preliminary and final squad. Okay, let's just finish with a preview of part 2. So we're going to go through the squad that we built here, the list that we built, and point out any notable non-selections. So that would be definite or likely players that don't actually make the squad, and surprise inclusions. That would be possible but unlikely, or players we haven't even mentioned suddenly coming into the squad. And that would include any new players. There's always a couple of players who are performing well with the clubs shortly before the cup, and so are brought into the cup. So we're expecting to see a few of those. And finally, we'll give an update on injuries, but we already have a couple on our radar. And let me see, those are right back Siu Wang Kit and left wing Sun Ming Him. Both still have injury flags on them in late October here, but we'll have to update that in part 2. All right, and we will see you again in part 2 in late December or early January. We originally planned to tag on our past, present and future plans for the mediacast, but we have instead decided to put a link to that 10-minute video in the show notes. It covers what we're working on and what we plan to do over the next 9 months. We'd like to thank Naber Abidjan and Pixabay for the wonderful music you hear in this mediacast. The title is called Arabic Trap.